Well, welcome to Atlanta Live. I'm Sherry Tatum. I'll be your host for this show. And do we ever have a good show? It's about Israel. And as always, you know I love Israel, and I'm so excited to have Mr. Jonathan Steen, I got it right, on our show. And he has written a most beautiful book, and I wish you could see it, Israel, the Miracle. And you're going to love it. We're going to go all through that, and he's also the founder of Genesis 1, 2, 3. We're going to talk about that. But, you know, another person that we're going to have is Joshua Aaron, and he's one of my very favorite singers. And he's going to be singing songs that they sang at the tomb in Israel, in Jerusalem. And I've been there, and if you've never been there, you should go. It is absolutely marvelous. And they did this taping regardless of what was going on, of the threat of war, of COVID. They decided nothing would stop them from making the taping of these beautiful songs. And every morning, I put on his song of the blessing of the King's 100 Harpists, and you should do the same. It would bless you. But right now, we're going to hear Spirit and the Bride by Joshua Aaron.
Let the one who hears the Savior say, come. Let the one who is thirsty come. Behold the Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. Never thirst again. הרוח והכלה אומרים בו, הרוח והכלה אומרים בו, Spirit and the bride say, come. Oh, come, Lord, come. Let the one who hears the Savior say, come. Let the one who is thirsty come. Behold the Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. Oh, in Him we will never thirst again. הרוח והכלה אומרים בו, הרוח והכלה אומרים בו, The Spirit and the bride
If you didn't love that song, something's wrong, because that song says it all. The Spirit and the Bride. I think it's just marvelously beautiful. But right now we're going to be talking to Jonathan Fieldstein. And like I said, he's the founder of Genesis 1, 2, 3, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
Now, and the book, beautiful. I hope you can see it. Oh, they have it up on the screen. Israel, the Miracle. Honestly, I've looked through the book, and it is absolutely one of the best books I've ever seen. The pictures are marvelous. But it is an essay, right, about from 75 top of our pastors all over the world, or evangelists, or whomever.
75 Christian leaders from all over the world,
All
from
over, and
every
they-
continent except Antarctica.
Okay, I'm going to talk about this book, but I want to talk about Genesis 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Tell me and our audience a little bit about that, because I don't know.
So how I got to Genesis 1, 2, 3 started when I lived here in Atlanta in the late 80s. I was working for the Israeli consulate. They would send me all over the Southeast, traveling and speaking about Israel in churches and schools and synagogues and community centers and home meetings and everything. First time I ever walked into a church, I was in my early 20s, had a lot more hair. None of it was gray. And I walked into a church in Cleveland, Tennessee. I didn't know there was a Cleveland, Tennessee. I didn't know the significance of Cleveland, Tennessee, but I could still draw the picture for you if I could draw of everything that I saw. Christians singing Israeli songs, Hebrew songs, dancing Israeli folk dances, wearing blue and white costumes, and it blew me away. And I knew this is God calling me to be a bridge between Jews and Christians. I didn't know what that meant, because
Yes.
I was just a 22, 3, 4-year-old young Jewish man from...
But God laid that on your heart
my.
to be a bridge.
Oh my, very
Yes,
much so.
between the Christian and the
Absolutely,
Jewish people.
absolutely.
Yes.
So this is something that's been not just a calling, but a passion of mine. Because if God's called me to do it, then I have to respond, but it's something that I live for.
Yes.
And I have been working over the course of these decades, working for other organizations that were very happy to raise money among Christians for projects in Israel, but didn't want relationships.
They didn't want relationships.
Not really. They wanted what I refer to as the objectification of Christians, the faith-based ATM.
Oh, okay.
Punch in a code and take out your cash.
Oh,
And
wow.
for me, I want to have a relationship. I want to build relationships, because when we were talking off air, there's so much more in common that we have as Jews and Christians together. There are things that we
Amen.
differ on that are theologically very significant, but we are the only people in the world who worship the creator of the world. And
Yes.
everything that trickles down from that. So it has to be done with sincerity. And several years ago, after working for a couple of other organizations, just wasn't fulfilling, I decided I would start the Genesis 1, 2, 3 Foundation so we could build relationships, so we could do things that other people weren't doing that are new, unique, and meaningful. I don't want to compete. I just want to offer different ways for Jews and Christians to connect, and that's what the Genesis 1, 2, 3 Foundation is about.
Why Genesis 1, 2,
Oh.
3, though?
Well,
Why name it that?
Because, of course, it comes from the scripture, Genesis 12:3, but it's hard to say the Genesis 12:3 Foundation because you don't know if it's a colon or a dash or a hyphen or something
Yes.
else. So 1, 2, 3, and some of us who are old enough to remember the Jackson 5 will remember the song ABC Easy as 1, 2, 3. We want to make blessing
Yeah.
Israel as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
But
That's good you
there's
did that.
even more. You know what? I'm glad you asked me, because I forget about it. Everyone knows the first 2/3 of the verse. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. Different translations, but that's the main idea. What's the third section of that? The families of the world will be blessed through you.
Oh, the families of the world, and that's true. Yes.
That's my responsibility as a Jew, to be a blessing to the families of the world. So we do that. We as Genesis 1, 2, 3 Foundation are involved supporting Christians in the Middle East, supporting Christians in Africa. What year was it? 2022, I think. There was a big shortage of baby formula here in America.
Yes.
I didn't have that problem in Israel. I flew over. The airline gives me the privilege of bringing 3 70-pound bags. I carried in with me 200 pounds of baby formula that I gave out to 2 churches in the Dallas area, which was my first stop. Yeah.
Oh, my
So we need to be that blessing. We need to. it's relationship.
Yes.
And that's what we're about, the Genesis 1-2-3 Foundation.
Well, you know, Jonathan, we're all God's creation.
Yes.
Why can't we get along? Why can't I accept you and you accept me? Just because I might have some difference in my faith than you have, why would I have to be your enemy or not have anything to do with you? I've never understood that mindset, and it's so prevalent, and there's so many anti-Semitics
Yes.
now, and I can't grasp that either. Why do you think that is?
Well, anti-Semitism is the oldest hate. It doesn't make sense to me that it would be from jealousy, because God welcomes everyone to receive him and be part of a covenant, whether as a Jew or as a Gentile,
Yes.
with him. And it doesn't make sense, but there is evil in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And there's been evil in the world. And I don't know that we're going to ever defeat evil in the world. So we as Jews are the victim of that oldest evil of anti-Semitism.
Well, were you surprised about when October the 7th happened? A few days after that, the media showed so many people protesting against Israel defending themselves. Were you shocked at that? I was.
I'm shocked by it. I'm not surprised by it.
I was surprised too.
No, because remember, I live in Israel. What happened on October 7th is just the metamorphosis of this evil, and we've been living that. People talk about anti-Semitism around the world, but we live with anti-Semitism as the targets of that on a daily basis.
But how do you function over there, everyday life, under the threat of what all of you live under? You
Yeah.
could be bombed any minute, anything bad could happen. How do you go on about your daily lives under that constant umbrella of threat?
It's a good question, Sherry. Israel is constantly ranked among the top 4 or 5 happiest nations on the face of the earth every year. I'm curious to see what will happen. Yeah, it is. I don't know how they count it, but it's a couple of Scandinavian nations and then Israel, even above the United States. We celebrate life. We have a higher birth rate than Western countries.
Thank you.
Right? And life is valuable, and maybe it's because of the conflicts that we live, that we understand the preciousness, that we have to live for the moment and celebrate that. But terrorism and the fear of war has always been a cloud hanging over. We live just 40 miles to the east of Gaza. That morning on October 7th, we were awakened by air raid. It was very haunting. We were awakened by air raid sirens that jolted us out of bed.
You heard them. You could
Oh.
hear them. Yourself.
The air raid siren.
What went through your mind though, Jonathan? What happened?
So it was Shabbat, Saturday, and we're
Yes.
Orthodox Jews. We don't use electronics. We didn't turn on the TV. Our phones were off. We didn't know what was going on. It's rare for rockets to come 40 miles. It's happened before, but it's rare for that. So we knew something bad was going on, and we were sent to the bomb shelter in our home 4 times that morning alone.
Oh my.
And it was much worse around, and you could hear the booms of the Iron Dome shooting rockets down. One was right over our head. It was very haunting, but we felt comfort because we know that the Iron Dome and the Army was there to protect us. But if you had been in my home that day, I wish I could have recorded it with my wife. We only had 2 kids at home that Shabbat, talking about what could have happened. Why were they all of a sudden shooting rockets at us? We didn't know.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've got
ahead.
to say this. Why did Israel not know that this was about?
A gross intelligence
take
failure.
place?
A gross intelligence failure. Later this year, there
There has to be some kind of investigation.
There will be investigations. There will probably be new elections. A lot of people will take responsibility, and others will be ascribed responsibility. And there need to be some changes. This was a gross failure of
Absolutely.
relying on technology and not on the intelligence. There were hints of it, but they were not listened to. But that morning, I'll tell you what, it was a little scary, it was unnerving.
Yes.
Anyone who's watching who has a teenage son will appreciate this, that my youngest, who was 18, was home, and he just was annoyed being waken up repeatedly by the air raid siren. So my oldest son's bedroom is our bomb shelter, so he decided he would go to sleep in my oldest son's bed, so if he had to get up again, he didn't at least have to leave bed, which was clever. But we were speculating everything. Until 4 o'clock that afternoon, we had no idea what was going on because we didn't leave the house. It wasn't safe.
Yes.
You didn't know when more rockets would come. And my oldest son, who just turned 25, since then, and is a newlywed, he got married in July.
Was he in the IDF? Was
My
he?
son was called up that afternoon on October 7th, as was my son-in-law. He came in the house at about 4 o'clock that afternoon to say, I have 10 minutes.
God, I don't know how to,
It's hard to talk about.
I don't know how to do it.
He said, I have 10 minutes, I have to take my equipment, and I have a ride, and I'm going down to the Gaza border. And at the time, he only knew 20, 30, 50 people, I don't remember, had been killed. He didn't know all of the details. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Or we sure weren't getting it. And we waited, and then it was like layers of an onion. Saturday night, we turned on the TV, we saw what happened, we saw the horrid videos that the terrorists themselves filmed. We were worried for my son. We didn't really have a sense of where this was going to go. That's still now today, almost 5 months into the war. He just was discharged 2 weeks ago. He had been in the army for 4 months. He had been fighting in Gaza for 2 of them. Thank God he's home. He's home with his wife.
Thank God.
Right, and they can
Yes.
get their lives. He spent today most of his married life away from his wife and in the army. And that's not.
Wow.
And when there was a recent celebration of their unit completing their mission in Gaza, which, I got to tell you this. His unit is one of 2 in the whole IDF that have a Christian commander.
Oh,
Amazing.
Amazing,
An amazing
yes.
story for another time.
yes.
But we had a celebration of the completion of their mission. And I looked and I saw these couples coming in with babies under a year old. And I realized, wait a minute, these babies don't even recognize their fathers
Yeah.
because the fathers have been in the army for more than half of their lives.
Yeah. So sad, isn't it?
It's been sad, but this is our reality, Sherry.
But that's what I'm saying. But you were talking about your son, your other son that is 18. When I've been in Israel, I see very young people, even girls, with their military outfits on, carrying the gun. How young do they recruit, or do
18.
you have to go?
18. Most Israeli men and women, Jewish Israeli men and women, are recruited at 18. There are ways to defer. My youngest son is in a pre-military preparatory program, so he's already 18. He'll go into the army this coming summer at about 19 years old.
How do you feel about that? Do you have any fear connected to that?
Of course there's fear.
Yes.
I'm a 59-year-old man, the father of 6. When you send your kids into the army, when your son-in-law goes into the army and leaves his wife, who's my daughter, and 3 grandchildren, of course there's fear. That'd be foolish if I wasn't fearful, but I'm proud.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
First time in the history of the world that we've had a Jewish army that we can defend ourselves, and you mess with Israel and you're gonna pay the price. And we don't want that.
Yes.
We don't want that. We want peace.
Yes.
But no, but I'm so proud of my sons. I'm so proud of all of the soldiers from the Genesis
Me
1,
too.
2, 3 Foundation. We started an Israel emergency campaign, and we've been
That's what
loving on the soldiers.
I wanted to ask you, were you not getting civilians and other people to help the Israelis after the attack to kind of help, put them in places, food and all that? Were you not getting that done?
Very much. We helped resettle an entire community of people who were 6 miles from the Gaza border and couldn't live in their homes for about a month and a half. We paid, but it was money that was donated from Christians and Jews, literally from all over the world. We paid for their hotel for 3 or 4 weeks. And a dear friend of mine opened up his interior design showroom to make a clubhouse for the kids, which was delightful. Every day there was a different
Yes.
project. Every day there were different meals, and all of this came from donations. The amount of unity, the amount of strength and resolve that we are seeing in Israel still today, almost 5 months after the war, is something that's super encouraging.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. How is the morale among the people? How are they feeling? Because this war, I don't see it ending soon.
It's not ending soon.
Are they okay?
We're not all okay. We're each dealing with traumas in different ways. I think this week, the podcast, I host an Inspiration from Zion podcast, and we're talking about the lack of sleep, the loss of sleep, by people like myself, and that's all across the board, and many Israelis are self-medicating so we can sleep and get through this. No, we're not okay, and the traumas that we're dealing with now will last for generations. Even my little grandchildren, hearing noises.
I wanted to ask you that too. The children. I mean, some of these children, I read. Of course, we don't know anymore. Fake news. We don't know what we're reading. We hope we're reading the truth. But I read, the children saw so many horrific things. Terrible. How are they doing? And are they trying to get on with a normal life? Are their parents sending them to school? Are their schools open?
So in most of Israel, yes, there are schools open. And if you don't follow the news, in most of Israel today, you won't know that there's a war going on. And that's a blessing. That's how it should be. We have hundreds of thousands of soldiers defending and doing what they need to do, and thank God for that. But you have children whose fathers and mothers are in the reserves, and some of them, if they're old enough, know that that's dangerous.
Yes.
And know that they've lost a neighbor or a friend or a relative.
Some of them have lost their parents.
And some of them have lost parents, and we're in a sense of national grief that we haven't even all been able to digest since October 7th. And that's kind of the trauma. But I have 3 grandsons, 5, 3, and 1.
3 grandsons. Congratulations.
Thank you. My youngest doesn't really know what's going on. The older 2 know something is different. And even though they don't know, they know that there's a war. They know that their father was out for a while. They don't know what has been involved, but I guarantee you, 50 years from now, when they're raising their grandchildren, there's a trauma left over from this because of what's going on. And yes, and it may yet get much worse before it gets better.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like this will be a long war?
The answer is yes, and sadly it needs to be. The reason for that is we really must crush Hamas in Gaza, but Hamas has tentacles in many other places. It's not only in Gaza, it's an ideology. Gaza is where they controlled, and the things that they've done there to their own people are unspeakable. But that needs to be done, and we need to get back the remaining 134 hostages. As of today, many of whom we know are not alive. But the bigger threat, the much bigger threat, the thing that makes me fearful, is from Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have anywhere from 150,000 to maybe 350,000 precision, long-range rockets that can hit almost anywhere in Israel. And that means when that happens, it's going to be very unpleasant in Israel. But it has to happen because we can't live in a situation that they threaten us the way they do, nor can we allow them to get away with it.
Well, that's why I was so shocked at the people that were protesting against Israel for defending themselves. I thought if you were attacked, it's normal to defend yourself.
Right.
How could anyone think that Israel isn't justified in defending themselves against this horrific attack? Of course, you hear the news. Y'all had a media war there. Y'all kind of lost the war with them for a while because they were so against Israel. But if you are attacked, you're going to defend yourself. And people would say, oh, but no, Israel's always taking advantage of the Palestinians and they take their land. That's not so. No. I think Israel has done more than their fair share. I think they've given up land. They've had to leave, do things. And, and another thing, I don't think all the Palestinians are for Hamas. I think the only reason some of them do what they do, Jonathan, is because of the brutality of Hamas, who threaten the Palestinians.
So I wish that that were the case. I don't know that that is the case.
Yeah.
We live in the Judean mountains, as in Judea and Samaria, as in what they call the West Bank. And there were Palestinian surveys recently, since the war began, showing that they are proud of Hamas, that they celebrate Hamas, that it strengthens their nationalism. And this, they're...
So that was wrong,
Their culture is very perverse. They celebrate terrorism. They don't believe that we have any right to exist in the land. When they talk, when all these protesters here in America are chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that means killing me and my children and my grandchildren.
Absolutely.
And all almost 10 million Israelis. And they don't distinguish between Jewish Israelis and non-Jewish Israelis. Christian or Muslim, we still have Bedouin hostages sitting in Gaza, dead or alive, we don't know. But yeah, absolutely, black or white, they don't distinguish. And this is the problem. This is the core of the problem. They are not protesting because they want to have a two-state solution and they want to live side by side. It's not about the existence of a Palestinian state that they're fighting for. It's because of the existence of the Jewish state. And their very evil Islamic theology is that we all have to be gone.
Y'all are the little devil in the United States. I heard it was the big devil.
Correct.
by them. Well, do you feel, though, that Israel is resolved in this matter to end this war with Hamas and to have the victory they need?
So generally, yes. But the longer this goes on, the more we're seeing ruptures of that. We're seeing specifically about the release of the hostages, opposing camps, if you will. One camp is we have to do everything possible to bring them all back, even if it's the most obscene, painful thing by releasing terrorists with blood on their hands. And there are families of hostages who say, no, don't release any terrorists. I know my son is a captive. I know this one is a captive. We cannot give in to the terrorists. And there's another big protest going on right now about the fact that we're sending in humanitarian supplies.
Yeah.
Why should we be? I mean, yes, it's lovely to provide humanitarian supplies, but to into Gaza, where Hamas controls that, why should we send humanitarian supplies if they're not sending out human beings?
So we've got to, we're going to go to hear Joshua Aaron sing, I think, Hosanna, and you're going to love this song, I do, but we're going to be back with Jonathan in just a moment. We're going to talk about his book also, so stay tuned here with us, and we'll be right back.
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Oh, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. We will sing of your salvation. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Oh, we cry out for your salvation. No other name by which we are saved. Oh, but the name of my Messiah. Oh, that the world will know your name. Oh, that the nations will call on the name of the Lord. Name of and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
I do so love the music of Joshua Aaron. I can't explain it, how it touches me, and the words of his song, and just how beautiful the music is. I know it has to be God-inspired. And we're still here. We're speaking with Jonathan Felstein, and we were talking just a minute ago about how it is in Israel now, and how, and you know, I said this to you, Jonathan, as a mother, and you know, we'd kind of touched on it a little while ago, but as a mother or grandmother, great-grandmother, if I would feel safe sending my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren to school. I just, you know, after October the 7th, I just don't know how I would feel about that.
October 7th is a horrific massacre.
Absolutely.
Hundreds of thousands or maybe more Israelis were living under threat of rocket fire. Life was not normal, and it still isn't normal. Nevertheless, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren go about their lives. In my house, across the street, there's a school. You hear the playing, you hear the laughter, you hear the music from the school. It's all very normal, and what's so beautiful, I grew up in America. I spent several years living here in Atlanta. I started raising my family in America. We wouldn't even send our children to the neighbor's house without looking to make sure that they would get there safely. Here, from a very young age, under 10, kids are free. They wander the streets. They're not aimlessly, but they have freedom.
Yeah.
And there is that sense. And there's a comfort. I love that. I love the fact, when I was a teenager, it was my first trip to Israel, and God gave me this vision, not only to live in Israel, but I understood then that it was a better place to raise children. Now, I was a child myself, so how God gave me that vision. But from that point, I wanted to raise my family in Israel. And I'll tell you what, I've got 6 kids, 1 born in Israel, 5 we imported, and they all thank us for making that move 20 years ago this summer.
Awesome. Well, you know, every time, well, I've only been twice, and like I said, I could move there today, I think. I love Israel, but every time I've been, I've always felt secure. I've always felt safe. I never saw anything, you know, that would make me fear or be afraid. I never heard anything that would make me afraid. And we went everywhere.
Correct.
We went all over. I mean, for days. How long were we gone? 12 days on one of them. We went everywhere. And I never had a sense that something was wrong. But saying that, how has this October 7th massacre affected tourism?
Oh, tourism has been destroyed.
Really?
Tourism has been destroyed. My friends here, that we're going to talk about the book in a moment, but there are a number of hotels and tour companies that are buying the book and giving it out to their Christian guests, and that's a blessing. I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
But they've all been devastated. The only saving grace for the hotels is that we have hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have been displaced from their homes. So you have Israelis who are living in hotels, which is not an ideal situation for more than a week or two, but they've been now going on almost 5 months in some cases.
Were there a lot of people that were displaced?
Over 200,000.
200,000?
200,000 from the south and from the north. And people are now going back to the south, to the Gaza area, because there's not an immediate fear of rockets or terrorists coming across. We've taken care of business well in Gaza, but the fear from the Lebanese border, and I've been up there very recently,
Is that to the north?
Lebanon is to the north,
Okay.
yes. And there's a lot of threats from Lebanon.
But there's not war in the north now.
There are a lot of rockets that come across. The other day, a few dozen. Still not what they can do, but it was drones. We fire back. We've been very, very strategic and tactical about taking out their leaders and taking out their infrastructure. But it's not a full-scale war yet.
I hate to ask the question, but do you think there will be?
I think, as I hear from soldiers on the north and others and just Israeli friends, sadly, I think there has to be, because Hezbollah cannot continue to exist with anywhere from 150,000 to 350,000 rockets that on a whim they could unleash on us. So yeah, they have to be dealt with, and barring a miracle from God, and we always know that we can put put that. God does miracles, and God can change hearts, and I pray for that. And next month we're doing a prayer event specifically for that as one of our 3 main prayer points. But barring that, there is evil, and we can open up our Bible and we can read about the wars and we can read about the destruction of
Yes.
evil. And if we have to have a modern war, we'll suffer, but we can't live this way with the threat that exists.
Well, Israel to me is the apple of God's eye.
Is-
And God's going to protect Israel. Like I've told you, I said before, if no one else has ever protected no other country or anybody or anything,
Correct.
Israel, by God himself, I believe this with all my heart, will be protected by our Heavenly Father, God Almighty, El Shaddai. He's the God that's more than enough. And I take great comfort
I do too.
in that. But I wanted to ask this question before we get into the book. Who originally owned the Gaza?
Gaza is part of the land of Israel.
I say that and no
Part of
one
the-
believes me.
Part of the borders, you just look at a map of where the 12 tribes were settled after we came back to the land from being exiled in Egypt. And yeah, Gaza's.
That to me is amazing. And the people will not, some people won't hear that, and it's the truth. Some people will take false information over true information. But, and you may not can answer this question, but where does Hamas get their money and their weapons? And if that's too political, you don't have
No,
to.
that's not political. Iran is the head of the snake. Iran is the evil influence of all radical Islam and the world supporter of terrorism with Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis in the Middle East alone, and in Syria and in Iraq, and with cells all over Europe. And I believe that they didn't have to do so much sneaking, come across the border from Mexico quite openly. And I pray that I'm wrong. I don't ever want to see harm coming to anyone, certainly not America.
I'm with you.
But
Yes.
but Iran, which just observed the 45th anniversary of their Islamic revolution, we need leaders in this world, and in the United States in particular, and Israel, that are going to take care of the head of the snake, cut it off.
Oh, goodness gracious. It's amazing, all of it to me. There's so much to know. But one other question, how many Palestinians live in Gaza?
A little over
Or do you know that?
a little over 2 million. I've heard 2.2, 2.3 million.
They're at the West Bank also and Gaza.
That's right.
Now, didn't Israel give up the West Bank, or am I wrong on that?
In the 1990s, there was the Oslo Agreement, which took the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, and Gaza, and divided it into areas A, B, and C. That is the prevailing law right now between us and the Palestinian Arabs, and what was created then, the Palestinian Authority. And Area A is a full Palestinian Authority control, Area B is shared control, and Area C is full Israeli control, as in where I live. But we're on top of each other like this.
Really?
There's a Palestinian Arab village closer to my bedroom across the valley than there was of any Palestinian Arab villages that were close to the communities that were
Well, do
devastated.
the Palestinians and the Jewish people, the Israelis, work together?
Yes, indeed.
And do things
Yes,
together?
indeed, but that's changed quite a bit since October 7th. Nobody, in fact, when this conversation comes out, tomorrow we're having elections for mayor, and that is a very big issue because people in our town don't want Palestinian Arabs to come back and be in Gaza.
Well,
We're in our communities, excuse me.
okay, I have to ask this question. Is there a humanitarian zone I've read about in Gaza for the Palestinians or the Jewish people? Do you know anything about
We're
that?
bringing in literally tons of humanitarian supplies. The problem is that
That's a zone, are you
it's
saying?
not a zone, it's that we bring it in. The Israeli army controls most of Gaza right now, and we bring in supplies, but still the supplies end up going through the hands of Hamas, and Hamas pilfers off what they want, and they have raised prices for their own people to get these supplies, which are being donated and shouldn't be sold at all.
Okay, the Hamas charter.
Yeah. Destruction
Tell
of
what
Israel.
that is. Completely annihilating.
1988 Hamas charter calls for the complete destruction of Israel. There's no negotiation, there's no two-state solution, there's no living in peace. Hamas exists to destroy the state and people of Israel, period.
They exist for that.
Yes, they
you're
do.
saying. So what is the difference between Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, and the Houthis?
Different forms of different ideologies within Islam, but ultimately they're the same extremists that tolerate no Jews and tolerate no Christians, and we've seen that we can do another hour-long conversation just on that.
Are they a strong military force all
Hamas?
together or separate?
Well,
all of them, all the ones I mentioned.
Indeed. Hezbollah is a trained, well-equipped, sadly experienced.
But the Houthis?
The Houthis are ridiculous. The Houthis have a lot of long-range weapons that have been provided by Iran, and they're now shutting down international shipping, which is causing a lot of stress and a lot of...
Like a maritime war or something?
They are hijacking ships and threatening ships and basically have closed much of the shipping traffic through the Suez Canal, which is a huge profit center for Egypt, and therefore taking a lot longer to ship around the world and increasing costs by a great deal. But the Houthis are not a huge fighting force. The Houthis are a little bit more of a rebel force within Yemen, and Yemen, other than being very strategic, isn't such a particularly important country.
Well, what about Egypt? Well, Egypt's, where do they stand?
Egypt should be standing much more clearly and resolutely with Israel because Egypt also despises the ideology that threatens Egyptians. That's why President Sadat was assassinated in 1981, and the Muslim Brotherhood, which took control over Egypt for a little while. Egypt should be standing very resolutely, but Egypt is hedging its bets because they're still Arabs and they don't want to be seen as being against other Arabs and Muslims.
Okay, last question before I go to your book. Do you think the United States will continue to stay with Israel? As the way it's going, I'm seeing the things that I don't like, and I would think you know the news, you've heard the news and different things. I just want to know how you feel about it.
So I'm very concerned for the current U.S. government standing with Israel because we have an election coming up and they're pandering to the pro-Hamas wing of the Democratic Party.
Unbelievable,
But I
yes.
do believe Americans stand firmly. Yesterday on my flight here from Germany, a man identified me as a Jewish person, obviously, and wanted to talk about Israel. And he told me there are millions of Christians like me who stand strongly with Israel.
Amen.
And so Americans do, even if the government doesn't so much.
And I can say, truthfully, I know so many Christian organizations and people that stand with Israel, pray for Israel. They despise the war. They don't like what's happening, but they stand with Israel.
Sure.
And solidarity. They, you know, how could we not?
Correct.
How could if you're a Christian person, how could you not stand with Israel? That's the God we serve.
Correct.
So, but Jonathan, thank you for answering 5 million questions that I've had. But I felt like it was pertinent because I know you're knowledgeable, and a lot of us aren't, and we need to know some of these things I've asked. But I want to go to this beautiful book, Israel, the Miracle, Encounters with the Land and the People that God Loves. And on the front of this, on the book, you've got it on the screen, that's the Wailing Wall. And I was telling you before when I was there, I went there. Every time I go to the Wailing Wall. And I write my little prayers and I put them in the wall. And people say, well, you don't have to do that. God hears your prayers. That's not the point. It's just that I'm there. This is a tradition.
Correct.
This is what is known to do. And I do it along with my Israeli brothers and sisters. That's why I do it. I know God hears my prayers. He hears our prayers.
Correct.
But tell me about there's a essay in here. You said essays. So actually, what is happening, people are writing, like Kay Arthur wrote, "This is the land that God has given to you." So tell me what you mean. They're writing an essay. Is it like just a short story
Right.
about what they think of
Right.
Israel?
So God gave me this idea in October of 2022.
Okay.
And I had been speaking to the publisher, Higher Life, a Christian publisher based here in the U.S., about a different book. And I sent a message to the owner. I said, hey, I have an idea. God gave me an idea. How about putting together a book of 75 essays by Christian leaders from all
Why
over the world?
75?
Because Israel is celebrating its
75th
75th
anniversary.
year.
Yeah.
And no one's ever done anything like this,
Yes.
ever. So he loved the idea. He improved upon it many times. And it was a fascinating process to go about getting these essays. Not everyone who I asked said yes because they couldn't, or different challenges. But when we look at this book, it is an unbelievable, diverse mix, ethnically, denominationally, geographically, demographically, age-wise. It's really unbelievable. And I simply charged every person writing their own essay, why is Israel significant to you? And I said, from any of these categories. And I was honestly concerned that people would write things that were just going to be spitting out the same, regurgitating the same, I will bless those who bless you, watchmen on the wall for such a time as this. And we just have that repackaged.
Yeah.
There's a thread that runs through them, but each one is unique, each one is different. They're essays of about 800 to maybe 1,200 words. The pictures are stunning.
They are.
And we're talking about children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit your grandchild or great-grandchild on your lap and open up just one of these. And even if that grandchild is too young to read him or herself, you can read it at an age-appropriate level, and it's a book to engage people.
Yes.
It's not simply a book that you're going to read and be inspired and put it up on a shelf.
So, like I think Kay Arthur said, I think it was her that I read when she first saw, when her first trip there, and she first saw Israel, how taken aback she was. And I can agree with that.
Yes.
Because once you go to Israel and you see all the different things that are in the Bible, I could have written you an essay, Jonathan.
Correct.
That the Bible becomes so real.
Yes, it
to you.
does.
When I read the Bible now, and they talk about where David was, and the slaying Goliath, and I've been there.
Yep.
I know that's the truth.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've seen
That's right.
that. And so, how did you go about? Did you have to go to these people's, each one, and say, How did you come?
I
up
had
with
to
that?
get to them or their representatives. I haven't met all of them yet.
Yes.
And ask them if they would do it. And of course, there's a legal component because when they're writing an essay that is being published, we had to have their authority to do that. And all of the essays went through editing. And some of the people in this book are very, very, very skilled communicators. And yet our editor did a job improving them so much that that many of them complimented the editor for making their essay even better.
Well, are they all entertainers? Are they
Oh, no.
politicians? Or
We have the former president of Guatemala who moved his country's embassy to Jerusalem. We have a current sitting member of parliament in South Africa who is a staunch supporter of Israel. We have the former Chief Justice of South Africa who receives death threats because of his support for Israel. And we have pastors like Pat Robertson. This is probably his last essay on Israel. We have Gordon Robertson. We have Larry Huck, Anne Graham Lotz.
I love her.
We were talking before about American support for Israel. David Barton's essay as America's historian is a must-read for Americans.
I love what he does.
Right?
Yes.
And his is such a good essay. Joel Rosenberg, I don't think I'm speaking out of school. Joel's a good friend. But he said to me at the outset, because he writes books, and he writes great books, and he knows from publishing, he said, no way you're going to finish this in time. We went from October conception to August delivery to the printer, 9 months. And honestly,
That's almost impossible.
That is a miracle in and of
I was
itself.
going to say, that's a God thing.
I did not know how complicated putting this book together would be. First time I've ever done it.
It's almost amazing that you could get 75 people
Yes.
in that time frame, get all the pictures, get it published, put together so beautifully in 9 months.
People
My
assume
little
that-
book took me over a year, and it's just a little regular book.
Correct. People assumed that this had been in the planning stages for 2 years, and it should have been.
Yes.
But
and it
God gave
wasn't.
me the idea in October of 22, and
He's the God of suddenly. Suddenly, it's there, you know?
and it's stunning. We know each other. We met in Jerusalem, and I'm here. I'm not a very immodest person. I don't think that I'm so great. But when I look at this book, I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
Yes.
What a stunning thing. It has my picture and my name in there. That does not because I'm so great, but I've had the privilege in Israel's 75th anniversary to produce something that is historic, not ever been done before.
Well, let me say, it's a beautiful book. Please get it. And
let me
thank you. We got 10 seconds.
IsraelTheMiracle.com and use the coupon code Jonathan10 to save 10% when you buy it.
That's what I was going to ask you, how we could get the book.
IsraelTheMiracle.com.
Yes, so you'll love it, absolutely. And thank you, Jonathan. I could go on for another 5 hours.
I'll be back.
Talking about Israel. Yes, we shall do this again.
All right.
But thank you for being with us here on Atlanta Live. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And God willing, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.